Recording in progress. We're still waiting for a few commissioners to arrive, but I can go ahead and read the public advisory. I'd like to welcome everybody to the December 8th meeting of the Zoning Adjustments Board tonight. Both the commissioners, staff, and members of the public who are here tonight. This is our last ZAB meeting of the year. Another year in Zoom world, which we may be emerging out of. I've heard rumors next year, so we get to actually see each other in person. But we're still in Zoom, and the public advisory addresses that. This meeting will be conducted exclusively through video conference and teleconference, pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E and the state declared emergency. This meeting of the Zoning Adjustments Board will be conducted exclusively through teleconference and Zoom video conference. The COVID-19 state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of the members to meet safely in person and presents imminent risks to the health of attendees. Therefore, no physical meeting location will be available. If you are joining us by PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or Android device, and do not wish your name to appear on the screen, you can, we've learned, sign off, come back in, and you'll have an opportunity to change your name, and you can be anonymous if you so choose. That's our policy, whether by Zoom or in person. If you are joining us by PC or Mac, and wish to speak when invited to do so during the hearing, there will be several occasions when I'll be inviting attendees to speak. You can use the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen by pulling with the bottom of the screen. A little hand will pop up, click on it, and I'll know to recognize you. If you're calling in by phone, you don't have a little raise hand icon on your screen. You'll have to press *9 when invited to speak, and then you'll be recognized by the chair. Please be mindful that the teleconference will be recorded, as all ZAB meetings are, whether in person or not, and all rules of procedure and decorum apply to this meeting in the same fashion as it does to meetings in person. That is, I think, the full extent of the required reading. And we can get to preliminary matters, which first item is roll call. And I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome the newest commissioner who will be saying A to the, or yes to the roll call, Cecilia Linapara, Kate Harrison's appointee. It's wonderful to have you here, Cecilia. And maybe when we do roll call, you can take the opportunity to say a few words about yourself and introduce yourself to the commission and the community. So if you'll take roll call, Smith, that would be great.
Okay, great. When I call your name, please indicate if you are present and if you have any ex parte disclosures. Board Member Trigu?
Present, no ex parte.
Duffy?
Present, no ex parte.
Gaffney?
Present, no ex parte.
Thompson?
Present, no ex parte.
Lunapara?
Present, no ex parte. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Cecilia. I'm a third-year urban studies major and history minor at UC Berkeley. I was appointed by Kate Harrison, and I'm very, very excited. I'm really interested in zoning and housing, and I'm really excited to work with all of you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, thanks for giving your limited free time as a student to this board. It's a big responsibility, land use policy in the city, and not an easy job. So I really appreciate you joining us, Cecilia.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Vice Chair O'Keefe?
Present, no ex parte.
Chairperson Khan?
Present, no ex parte.
Kim,
Present, no ex parte. Nice to meet you, Cecilia.
and Sanderson.
Present, no ex parte.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our roll call and ex parte communication. We now come to the section where the public is invited to speak on non-agenda items. These are items that are not actually on the calendar for consideration tonight. Issues of general interest or of particular zoning board interest that you may want to address to this commission tonight. So I'd like to invite people to raise your hands if you're interested in speaking on an item which is not on the agenda tonight. You will have an opportunity to speak on all the items on the agenda. And I don't see any raised hands. So I assume everyone is here to speak on agendaed items. Very good. We'll close out the public comment then on non-agenda matters. And we come now to the consent calendar. We have on the consent calendar the approval of the action minutes from October 13th, the approval of the ZAB meeting schedule for the coming year. If there are any questions about that, speak up as Samantha is prepared to answer any questions you may have about the schedule. We also have 2506 Hay Street, 1200 Dwight Way, and 2310 8th Street on consent. First, I'd like to ask if there are any commissioners here who would like to pull those items from the consent calendar for the full public hearing, or if you simply have some questions for staff to see if you would like to pull them from the calendar. And Debbie, I see that your hand is up.
I have concerns for both of those projects on the allowing the increase in parking over the maximum. So I'd like to discuss that, and if that's pulling them off consent, then so be it.
You're talking about item 4 and item 5, both of which are requesting a AUP for increased parking.
Correct.
That's great. We'll yank them from the consent calendar, and that'll give us an opportunity to discuss the AUP in particular. That's your particular interest, correct?
Yeah, right.
Okay. That's great. If there's no objection to 2506 haste, I'll then put it to the attendees whether anyone wishes to speak on that item, 2506 haste. You will have an opportunity to speak on the other two, which we have removed from consent. Raise your hand, please, if you would like to speak on 2506 Haste Street. I don't see any hands raised from the attendees or from the commission here. So do I have a motion for approval of items 1, 2, and 3? Igor and Kimberly, in that order.
I move the consent calendar, which for the record will include approval of action minutes from October 13th, next year's ZAB meeting schedule, and a continuance on 2506 haste.
Thank you. Kimberly, your hand was up next.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you for the second, Kimberly. Shoshana?
Yeah, I just wanted to get a comment in before we vote. I want to register my yearly objection to the calendar, which talks about Chinese New Year. And while I'm no expert, it's not my culture. My understanding is that the proper and that more inclusive term is Lunar New Year. And it annoys me a lot that our city documents always say Chinese New Year. So I just wanted to say that. I'm still fine with the calendar, but my objection must be recorded.
Thanks. Maybe one day you won't have to object anymore.
I doubt it.
Keep objecting and we'll see what happens. Thank you for that important point, Shoshana. As you, I think, have pointed out previously, the Chinese community is not the only community that shares that holiday. So we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, I'd like to take a voice vote.
Okay. Board Member Trigu,
Yes.
Duffy,
Yes.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Lunapara,
Yes.
Vice Chair O'Keefe,
Yes.
Chair Khan,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
and Sanderson.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that. Items 1, 2, and 3 pass. That means a continuance of 2506 haste. And it means that we can now have a public hearing on 1200 Dwight Way. I'd like to note for the record and for the commission here that the concern, the reason that 1200 Dwight Way and item 5, 2310 8th Street were pulled is because we have before us on both of these projects, correct me if I'm wrong, Samantha, AUPs in addition to the standard use permit to actually increase the parking over the maximum allowed based on the action of council. I think it was just last January. So this is the first time we're seeing these AUPs. There's specific requirements for the AUP findings to be met. And Debbie is asked to pull these so that we can have an opportunity to discuss these items. I think that's a wise move on your part, Debbie, because we need to familiarize ourselves with these issues as a commission. And this is an opportunity where we have 2 of these projects, the first 2 we've had with that AUP. I would like to advise the applicant that no one on this board is contesting the use permit, and that my understanding is that we can approve the use permit and still have the option of approving or not approving the AUP. Is that correct, Samantha?
That is correct.
So this public hearing, I would like to focus all of the discussion, if we could, out of respect for the many attendees we have here for item, I believe, number 6, really try to focus on the AUP issue. With that, Nilu, are you the staff person for the?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
I know you have to do your usual drill, so go ahead and go through the whole thing. But in discussion here, I'd like to really try to keep it to the AUP question. And Nilu, if you can expand on the AUP in particular, I think that'd be most beneficial to the commission tonight.
Okay, I have a very brief presentation, and I do address the AUP for the parking.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nilu Karim-Zadegan, land use planning staff. The project before you is at 1200 Dwight Way. It's a use permit to demolish a single family dwelling and a detached garage, and to build 2 two-story single family dwellings and 2 parking spaces. The subject lot is located in the restricted 2-family residential district, or R2. The zoning permits required are a use permit to demolish a dwelling unit, a use permit to add 2 new single-family dwellings, an AUP to reduce the required rear setback, and an AUP to add excess parking. Full analysis for each required finding is included in the staff report that has been provided to you. And the summary of these points are that the project is consistent with the purpose of the R2 district and is compatible with the residential character of the neighborhood. This project would replace the 1 dwelling proposed for demolition with 2 new dwelling units. Therefore, findings to approve the demolition of the dwelling units are satisfied. Sunlight, air, and view impacts to surrounding properties due to this project would not be detrimental. An AUP to reduce the rear setback to 16 feet where 20 is required is requested. The existing garage on the subject lot only provides a 4 feet rear setback, and the proposed rear dwelling would improve the building separation between the proposed project and the neighbor properties to the south. As far as the parking AUP, an AUP to exceed the 1 maximum allowed parking is requested. 2 is proposed. Based on the applicant's statement, the need for parking for multi-generational household cannot be met by the existing transit service or the available on-street parking. So staff recommends approval. Because of the project's consistency with the zoning ordinance and the general plan and its minimal impact on the surrounding properties, staff recommends that the zoning adjustment board approve this use permit subject to findings and conditions. And the applicant team is here for any questions about the parking or any other questions. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Neela. I was on mute, sorry there. Are there questions from the commission for Neelu before we invite the applicant to speak?
Do you want to save questions on the parking findings till after the applicant?
No, actually, I'd like you to ask Neelu now if you have any questions today.
Okay. This is a new standard to me, so I had to go back and do a fair amount of research. I'm still learning how the new zoning ordinance flows. And so it seems that we're for parcels with 2 or more main buildings, 2 or more dwelling units, not including ADUs, the parking standard is 1/2 space per unit. That's a maximum. So the AUP would allow them to go over that and have 2 spaces, 1 for each of the units. When I read their explanation, it's the same for both projects, which are not the same projects. The one project has a larger building and a smaller one, and the other project has basically 2 medium-sized units.
Oh, so I can't hear you, Debbie. You faded out just now.
Oh, so
I got that it's the same argument for both projects, so
yeah.
they are different projects. Okay.
So I don't see how we can. The argument about it can be set up for multi-generational housing, that would be true for any parcel that had 2 single-family homes on it. And so, and the idea about the driveway being too long. I just, I know of too many parcels with two units on it that they don't have 2 parking spaces and they walk down the driveway. So I don't buy the rationale that the applicant provided. It seems to me it would apply to almost any parcel with 2 units, and therefore it's not specific enough. The second issue is that on the required findings,
I'm not actually asking you to speak on it. I'm sorry, get questions for Neelu on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so I guess then how do you? Never mind. I was not understanding what you're asking.
I misdirected, Debbie. Sorry.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, clarifying questions. I do have a question, Neelu. For an AUP to be approved, and an AUP is a staff level approval. It typically, as I understand it, doesn't rise to the level of a public hearing, unless there's an appeal to a staff level approval. But in this case, because there's a use permit, we have the opportunity to review the AUP as well. So effectively, if we were to vote against the AUP, we would be overruling your finding as staff that this is an acceptable argument. There are specific code language, I believe, I haven't read it lately, that speaks to when additional spaces are justified. I remember when council voted this in, there was a concern that should they put a maximum on it all? Should they just take the minimums off? And the settlement was, the concession was to go ahead and put the maximum on, but to have a AUP that didn't rise anywhere to the level of a variance, to make it easier for people if they needed or felt they needed the additional spaces to have them. That's my recollection from the record. Of course, there is the record we could refer to, but we have the actual language. And what are the conditions that need to be met for an AUP for additional parking to be approved? Could you just read those to us to remind us of what they are, or to make us aware of what they are, in case they're conditions?
You're asking me, Charles, right?
Yes, if you
Okay,
could find that one.
so in order for this to be approved with an AUP, the review authority needs to find one or both of the following. A is trips to the use or uses to be served, and the apparent demand for additional parking cannot be satisfied by the amount of parking permitted by this section, by transit service which exists or is likely to be provided in the foreseeable future, or by more efficient use of existing on-street and off-street parking available in the area. That's A. And then B is the anticipated residents of the proposed projects have special needs or require reasonable accommodation that relate to disability, health, or safety that require the provision of additional off-street residential parking.
Yes, and my recollection is the second item was entered specifically at Susan Wengrath request, because particularly in the hills, there are elderly people who may not have the ability to get to grocery stores unless they've got an automobile available to them. So it was specifically, I think that's why we're hearing the intergenerational mention here. And Debbie, it does point out that either one of these is acceptable, not both are necessary. So my memory is the intention was for this to be a broadly interpreted, not narrowly interpreted provision. But if this commission finds it's being too broadly interpreted, we should speak to that when the time comes. Igor, you have your hand up. Actually, Samantha, you had your hand up first. Why don't you go ahead and then you, Igor.
Yeah, I just thank you, Charles, or Chair Khan. I just wanted to clarify that when a project requires use permits and AUPs, that ZAB is the review.
We are the judiciary function.
Yeah,
okay,
so it's no longer a staff level decision. So your decision doesn't change or override.
Got you.
Staff's just Thank you.
In other words, if they applied for the use permit without the parking and we were to approve it, and then they were to apply for a additional space under an AUP, that then later on that would have been a staff level decision.
I think it might require a modification to the use permit, actually. So I think it would still come. My understanding is it would probably still come back.
Okay. Igor?
That's interesting. Well, wanted to comment. We may want to, this is the first time I've seen this condition or proposed condition in place as well. But if we create a situation where we approve something with maximum parking requirements without an AUP, and things come back to us and our agendas get loaded up with discretionary reviews to add parking, that would be concerning to me, and we may want to watch that just from a time management standpoint. My question is actually on the second criterion. And I understand Councilmember Wengrath's intent. That makes sense to me. But how would that square with situations like the ones we have here and the ones we're probably going to continue to have, where we don't know who is going to be living there? potentially at least one of the units, maybe both, could be rented out, and we have no information on who would be occupying it now or in the future.
Good point. Why don't we go ahead and give the applicant a chance to do their presentation. They may have some answers for you on this. I don't know. But it is an interesting question that we have before us. Is the Neelu, can you?
Who's,
Okay, I
who
see
should
it.
we bring over?
L Mash.
I've sent names and emails to Brian if he can.
Yeah, so it is 1200. It is the applicant is Lena Mashudi, and then the owners June Yo and Sheldon.
So Layla is the designer on the project, and the owners are here as well.
Okay. Well, Layla has raised her hand.
Yeah, there she is.
Yes. So Layla, please make your presentation. As you can hear, the biggest concern that we're discussing right now is the parking. So if you could focus, your discussion to that point, that'd be great. And I believe you have all of 5 minutes. You probably won't need them to present.
I'll put a timer up right now.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Layla. I work with John Newton, who's the designer and the applicant for this project. As you can see, as we have already talked about, the scope is to build 2 new homes, demolish the existing home and detached garage in the R2 zone. So the existing garage provides 2 spaces, and there's one existing house which is kind of dilapidated, so we're tearing that down and building 2 new. We believe we designed 2 attractive homes that have their own parking space, their own private yards, and Dwight is a pretty busy street, and there is just hard to find parking there along the street. So we kind of figured that it was reasonable to assume that over the the time frame of this house, owners coming in and coming out, that it's reasonable to think that there will be a family with a child, babies, or elderly living with them. It's over 90 feet from the back house to the street. And then add finding parking in that is a very long walk, can be a very long walk for someone with children or someone who is elderly. So, we thought it reasonable to propose 2 parking spots, 1 for each unit. And it is kind of interesting to see also that it is, the existing house does have that detached garage with 2 parking spaces. So we're not adding any more than already was there previously. So about the parking, that's pretty much all I can say about that. It's a busy street, hard to find parking there. So, there is a little bit of safety concerns just having to park down the street, walk across the street on a busy street like that. And yeah, like I said, pretty far away from the street. The house in the rear is pretty far away. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about the parking. But so I think that's all I have to say. But if you guys have any questions about that or anything else about this project, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments and the explanation. Much appreciated. I see, Igor, your hand's up. If anyone has any questions, this is an opportunity to ask of the designer. Igor?
Sorry, this is actually for staff, just confirming that both projects, I know we're only talking about one of them right now, but both projects have a condition that residents would not be eligible for preferential parking.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Mine does, but I can't speak for the next project.
That's correct. It's for that applies to all new dwelling units. regardless of whether they're in a transit area.
Thanks. And is that mandated by counselors? That is just a staff policy, Samantha?
No, it is in the BMC in Title 14, maybe. I'll find the reference for you.
Okay.
I think it might list the code section, but it is in the code. I'll find it for you.
Thanks. Debbie, your hand is up, and then you, Igor. You're muted. Yeah.
I had a question about the driveway which are we talking about, one project or the other right now?
What's the question?
I'm sorry.
So the question is the width of the driveway on 1200 Dwight Way. It seemed to be too narrow to be approved by Public Works. So my question
it's 11 feet wide. It includes the 2 feet landscape strip, and then the 9 feet should be enough for the driveway.
Yeah, 10 is the standard.
Yes, but I didn't. Okay, I read the plans as saying it was 8 feet 5 inches, and then you take away the 2 foot landscape strip, and you had 6 feet 5 inches. So I'm looking at 1200 Dwight Way.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
1200. I'm looking at 1200 Dwight Way.
Okay.
Is that the same project you're on?
Yes, that's the project we are on, and I'm the project planner for it. And the driveway width looks like it's 11 feet, and then it goes down to 8 feet and 5 inches.
So I'm talking about the driveway for the back rear, the rear building.
Yeah, if I think I could clarify this, Debbie. If you refer to sheet A1.2, you'll see an elevation of that property. And there is a bay window that projects into the parking right of way, but it's on the second floor, well above the height of the park.
Correct.
I saw that. Well, maybe I can't read the plans, but it looks like
the actual the asphalt part of the driveway is 9 feet wide, and then there's a 2 foot planting strip, which you can count as part of the required width, because obviously you're not going to be brushing up against the property.
The parking and driveway standards require an 8 foot driveway width. When serving 1 to 3 cars, it's 8 feet wide, 0 to 30 feet, and then 9 feet wide, 31 to 60 feet.
And that now includes the landscapes, the 2 foot.
No, that's even without counting the
That's just the driveway, not the landscape strip.
Yeah, if you look at the plans, Debbie, on sheet A1.0, and you look at the front car where it says garage, immediately adjacent to that parking spot is a 9 foot dimension, and that's the dimension of the driveway of the asphalt.
Which plan? A1?
A1.0, the top sheet.
Yeah, okay, so when I read the plan, it says, maybe on my eyes, it says 8 feet 5 inches for the total width.
Look below that one. Below that dimension. There's a 2 foot and a 9 foot dimension.
I see there's a 9 foot.
Yeah, that's the dimension.
That includes the 2.
It doesn't include the 2, it's in addition to the 2.
Okay, I can't read the plans in, they're just too small for my eyes.
Okay, well, it's 9 feet.
Those aren't the numbers that I see on it, so I'll just believe that it's true.
Yeah, you can take my word for it. Igor, you had a comment?
Yeah, so sorry, I had a follow-up on the last question. Am I missing something which is very possible, or does the RPP requirement represent a change in policy? Because I recall previously multifamily buildings, but above 4 units, I think, had that RPP requirement in RPP zones. But yeah, so I see, Samantha, nodding.
Yes, it was part
Maybe.
of the parking reform package that passed in March of 2021. The same with the parking maximums and the TDM requirements for larger projects.
Thank you. I'm interested in discussion on the issue. I have my thoughts to offer, but I would like to hear from the commissioners first, out of respect for all of you. You're the one who had the initial concern, Debbie. So why don't you speak up?
Okay, so I haven't read this parking reform package, but I will as soon as tomorrow. But the requirements to expand it has that the trips to the use or uses to be served can't be satisfied with the amount of parking or the transit service. So these are projects that are within a certain distance of transit. It's not all the parking, all the parts of the whole city. I understand it. That's not correct. Please correct me. So, and the apparent demand for additional parking cannot be satisfied. And then the discussion is about whether it's, multi-generational housing or people are disabled. I'm with Igor that I don't quite understand how we can make a finding about paragraph B, because we don't know who's going to live there. And even if they're elderly, like my 98-year-old mom, she's in a wheelchair. She's not driving. So there's lots of variety of situations that affect every single family home in the city. And when there's two on a lot, we're being asked to treat that parking requirement differently. So I guess the argument to exceed doesn't seem to me to match the required setback. I mean, the required finding. If what we want is just to sort of say, all right, let's just realize that every single family home is going to want a parking space, then we can, set that policy. But that's not what the ordinance says. So given that this is the first time, it's an opportunity for us to establish.
Yeah, I appreciate you raising the opportunity because, in effect, we're establishing a precedent here, and we need to be mindful of that. My personal feeling about it, I mean, we are the zoning adjustments board. Our position, our responsibility is to make adjustments to zoning when we think it's reasonable to do so. We're expected to use our reason. We're not planners who are required to interpret things to the letter of the law. I think that the applicant's appeal to reasonableness is actually appropriate because that is why we exist as a commission. I think that there's a difference between conventional multifamily housing, particularly in our community, and single family homes. And I know that everybody on this board is committed to increasing housing opportunities for our citizens and for the community. You, Debbie, as much or more than anybody I know. I'm concerned that if we were to establish a policy tonight where single family homes were not provided an opportunity through the AUP process to have a dedicated parking spot, which used to be required until January, that we won't see them built. And I actually feel it's a defect in the law that this wasn't addressed, but they had a lot to talk about and to figure out. So I can speak for myself that as a commissioner on this zoning adjustments board, that the recognition that single family homes are different from multifamily homes, as they are typically occupied in our community, that they typically are for families and they typically are for multi-generational living, which sadly our apartments are not. That actually that is a reasonable argument. And so I think the findings are there, but I welcome the discussion, and I love that we're not doing this as a slam dunk. And I really would like to hear others' opinions on this. Igor?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. First, I just wanted to highlight that I see an attendee hand, and I don't know if we've opened the opportunity to comment on this by members of the public. But
once I open it to the commission, it's because I haven't seen any more hands, and I'm closing out the public discussion. But I could reopen the public hearing if you'd like me to recognize them.
Oh, okay. I just I think it was mentioned that there was an opportunity to comment on things pulled off the agenda.
Oh my God, you're right. You are absolutely right. Now, hang on a minute. I am so out of line on this. My apologies. I haven't closed the public comment because we haven't had any yet. So anyone who would like to speak from the public on this, I see one hand raised. Anyone else who'd like to speak, please raise your hand. I see one hand raised, so I will recognize that individual. Motorola Moto G Stylus is the acronym. You are muted. There you go.
I just want to know what the cross street is on that zone.
You mean Cross Street?
Yeah.
Matthews? So it's right off of San Pablo, Dwight Way and Matthews.
Oh, okay. And you guys were going to destroy that, demolish that site?
We're not doing it, but the applicant would like to demolish the building and build two buildings there.
Oh, okay. I see. Because I guess you were talking about the there's no parking or nothing like that area right there. So I was just saying, want to know what cross street it was. You know, maybe like the one lady was saying that they had to go park down the way there. But I just was wondering what cross street it was. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. So I will close the public discussion now and bring it back to this panel. Thanks so much, Igor, for reminding me of my duty. Duty is you're welcome, Motorola. Igor, and then Kimberly, and then Cecilia.
Okay, thanks. I will move that we approve the project as recommended by staff and as conditioned. I was an early proponent, and probably not unique among this body, of changing parking minimum standards to parking maximums. I remember actually sponsoring an item to that effect almost 10 years ago when I was on the Housing Commission. And I was excited about this reform package being approved by the council last year. With that said, I share Chair Khan's concerns that perhaps there was a lot going on that night. I remember watching, that was a late night for the council, as many are. And I think this is where we look at where the rubber meets the road, no pun intended. And there may be some potential drawbacks to the implementation of this. What is interesting to me actually is the interplay between changes to the RPP. So if we don't approve this as conditioned with the additional AUP for one parking per unit, there will be no opportunities for whoever may be living in that unit should they choose to use a vehicle or have to use a vehicle to park anywhere else in the neighborhood. There's not going to be, well, they will not be allowed to have on-street parking in the neighborhood with the RPP requirements. So as a matter of principle, I personally support policies that incentivize folks getting out of their cars and using alternative transit options. But I agree with Chair Khan that when I was envisioning this, I was thinking more about multifamily, and this is multifamily, but it's a duplex. It's the smallest possible multifamily type in terms of the number of units. I also understand that there is a condition in each one of these items to be EV ready, and I think that is important as well. And I think that, I mean, I know folks, and I think we all know folks that have made lifestyle choices not to purchase a vehicle. And some of them live in single family homes or duplexes now with driveways. And they have found other uses for those driveways. And I think giving residents that flexibility is appropriate. So I do appreciate flagging this. I think this is definitely an interesting wrinkle in implementation that we may want to discuss with our respective council appointers. But that being said, I agree that in this case, and probably generally with duplexes in RPP zones, allowing for one parking space per unit is appropriate, and hence my motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Igor. Kimberly, Cecilia, Debbie, and then I have a comment as well.
Can I ask
Kimberly?
one super quick question? I'm so sorry to interrupt, but should we remove the applicant now that you guys are in your deliberations?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So applicants, we're gonna say goodbye to you and put you back in the audience. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
All good. I just want to say, this has actually been a really amazing discussion, and really thank you, Debbie, for taking this off both the projects and allowing us to kind of have this. It's multifamily versus kind of these mid-density projects. They obviously are so different, and it's hard to obviously come up with policy that works for both. And I think allowing these kind of more medium density, smaller, duplex projects to have the opportunity to have a single parking space for each unit, is I think a pretty good thing. Especially because people, as kind of stated earlier by Charles, people living in these kind of, single family home styles might have a lot of different needs and than someone who's necessarily living in apartment style buildings. And what I was going to bring up is kind of Igor mentioned it, is that the EV charging stations, people who are living in single family homes, a lot of times, no matter what, will have cars. Some won't, and obviously that's great, but the people who will then be forced to park on the street if we don't allow this. And if you're parking on the street, that pretty much means you don't really have the opportunity to have an EV charging station or a car that's all electric, because obviously we haven't figured out how to necessarily do both of those things. So just at least to be able to allow people to have EV charging stations at their house at least gives them an opportunity to possibly have a fully electric car, which you would not be able to do without this. So I really appreciate this discussion, and thank you everyone for your opinions.
Thank you, Kimberly. Cecilia?
Thank you. Yeah. I also really appreciate this discussion, and I wasn't aware of the parking maximum situation that Deborah brought up, so I really appreciate it. I think that, I'm sorry, give me a moment. I think that this is a really good point that Deborah brings up, and it has really had me thinking the past half an hour, because I think that if we, like, having a parking space there does, at least to some extent, incentivize having a car. The city has a lot of really great public transportation, and to be fair, I haven't looked into this lot specifically and how close it is to buses, or AC transit, but I just really appreciate this conversation and this inquiry, and I'm like taking it into consideration, so thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. And Debbie, where are you at this point?
I have a question for staff. Can you summarize, because I think this is a new policy when we had a new zoning ordinance with no policy changes. What is the status going back up? In the past, you couldn't, if you had a parking waiver in a project, then the residents of that project could not have an RPP parking sticker. Is it now that no one can have an RPP, no new unit can have an RPP sticker? Can you just clarify for me?
That is correct. No new dwelling units are eligible for RPP. And that applies, I think, regardless of whether you're in a current RPP area. So if you're not in one, but it becomes one in the future, then you're also, the new unit is also ineligible.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I just
want the reference, it is in Title 14.
Okay.
14.72.
Thank you. I got to learn these new codes. So I wanted to say that I understand completely what people are saying, and I'm very sympathetic to that. What is troubling me a little bit is that we're in a new world with handling demand for parking, with the restrictions for any new dwelling unit in restricted from using RPP. That's a major shift, because in this case there was no waiver, and this requirement for the 0.5 standard is applying where you're a quarter mile of a major transit stop. It's not applying across the whole city. And that's what gave me pause, because I'm very torn, because, you know, Berkeley has a very low auto ownership rate compared to other cities, and we're trying to encourage transit on the major arteries. So I am very torn by having an opportunity to further support people using transit versus how we live our lives. And I will support the AUP. I'll support there's nothing else about the project that I'm concerned about. But I think this is a really tough nut, where our two sets of values are crashing against each other. And so maybe over the next year, we can have more discussions, and maybe with the planning commission, about what's the likelihood, if we stuck to the 0.5, that it would make any difference on transit? Or, you know, how did we come to 2, and why didn't we start at 3? You know, now that we have time to reflect on this, you know, I think over time, I'd like us to revisit what we're trying to accomplish, and whether or not the 0.5 helps to do that, or it just feels good. So anyway, I appreciate the comments, and you know, these are difficult topics as we try to move our community. We're nudging them in a new direction, but you can only nudge so fast. So it's tough. Anyway, I appreciate the comments, and I will support the motion.
Thank you, Debbie, for that comment. I just want to say a word, Joey, and then I'll recognize you. The basis for the, by the way, everything that Igor said is spot on in terms of my own feeling. And this commission was long. I mean, I remember before this was passed, Shoshana, Igor, and I all voted for variances to reduce parking when they were requested over our sometimes, in Shoshana's case.
I never voted for a variance, not once.
We voted over Shoshana's objections for a variance, despite our reluctance to approve variances because we wanted to see parking reductions in the community. And, you know, I spoke in favor of this law. I can say as a citizen, when it was passed, I was concerned at the time about the parking maximum not being adequately thought through, but was satisfied that the AUP gave sufficient latitude to this body to fix that problem. Deborah, I am certain we will be continuing to discuss this in the coming year. And I think it's because you know, we're gonna see a triplex, you know, and it's gonna have one space because that, you know, it'll have 1.5 space requirement, and that'll be interpreted as one space for 3 units. The thing that I'm going to use as a personal guide moving forward is the actual data that was provided to council when they made that decision. And the data was a review of student housing complexes of 3, 4, 5, and 6 stories that had parking garages and that were underparked relative to the number of spaces being provided to the tune of about 50%. That's how they hit the 0.5. There was no review, no data provided for properties like this that are zoned for 2 or 3, you know, homes. And I think that was a failing in a very forward-thinking legislation that I strongly supported. And we just wanted to move it forward. So I think we as the zoning board have an opportunity to make it a better law by evaluating, is there intergenerational living here, which is one of the bases for approving the AUP, or is it reasonable to interpret that it is more likely to have intergenerational living? I know intergenerational living, Debbie, is one of your leading concerns from many conversations we've had. And, you know, I'm looking after my 94-year-old mother now. And when she has a health crisis, we need a car to get her somewhere and we need a parking space for the car if there's no parking allowed on the street for that car. So I think it's a reasonable, that's why I said I felt that the reasonableness, you know, doctrine was being met. Joey?
Actually, Chair, I think you covered a lot of things that were really relevant and important. And I'll just lower my hand.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any more hands up. Cecilia picked an interesting meeting to come to. This is, we don't usually have sort of policy questions like this in front of us. So I think we could take a vote, Samantha. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? I'm happy to second.
I think we had a second.
We had a second. Okay, very good.
And is this on 1200? Or do we going to do both?
Right. Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed the second. Who was that?
Igor made the motion.
I think I did. I can't remember. Okay, I can remember if I said it out loud or not. I just in my head. Cool. Yeah. I seconded.
And the motion is to approve the use permit as described by Neelu, by staff.
Okay, so vote to approve the use permit for 1200 Dwight Way. Board Member Trigu?
Yes.
Duffy?
Yes.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Lunapara,
Pass. Come back to me.
Vice Chair O'Keefe,
Yes.
Chair Khan,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
and Sanderson.
Yes.
So
Back
you
to
should come
Cecilia.
back to Lunapara.
What did you? I thought you said yes.
Pass.
Oh, you
She
said
said pass,
pass.
but
I'm
yes,
so
yeah,
sorry.
yes, it's okay.
But
Yes.
Thank you for catching that.
Thank you. Thank you for your votes. That was unanimous, and we'll continue the discussion in just a minute on the next project. Yes, you have your use permit, 1200 Dwight Way. And with that, we can open the next similar item. Hopefully we can review this more quickly, and that the issues are, as Debbie pointed out, are they similar issues, Debbie, in your estimation?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same text, the same explanation. So it's a 2-for-1.
Would you, since you were the commissioner who asked to remove this from consent, would you be willing to consider returning it to consent and
Sure.
voting for it?
Sure.
Okay, out of sequence.
I
Thank
still-
you. If no one has any objection to returning it's 2310 8th Street, I believe. Is that right? I want to get my address correct.
That's correct. Do you need a hearing first? Do you need to ask?
What we're doing is we are the request to remove it from consent has been withdrawn, and we're returning it to consent. Samantha, if there's no objection from this commission or from the attendees. Igor, you have a comment?
No objection. I just wanted to see if we could I'm sure you were planning to do this anyway, just give a few seconds for members of the public if they want to comment, if they wish to, on this project.
Yes, I did just raise that question, but I'll repeat it. If anyone from the public wishes to speak on this, you should raise your hand if you feel it should be kept in the public hearing. If you don't feel it should be kept in the public hearing, please lower your hand. I do see one hand raised. Jennifer?
Hello. Hey, I live in the neighborhood of this second address, the 2310 8th Street. And after listening to the whole last discussion, I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents that at least in our neighborhood over here, everybody has cars. Street parking is awful. And I think it would be great if every dwelling has a parking space, an off-street parking space. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay, well, thank you for offering that. That was not a request to pull the item from consent. So we will have a separate consent vote on this one item. Is there any discussion before we have the consent calendar? No? Then Samantha, if you'll take the vote, we can move to the action calendar.
Chair Khan, you made the motion, and was there a second?
I moved to put it back on consent because I had pulled it off of consent.
I'm moving it back to consent at chair discretion. It's because the individual who asked to have it removed withdrew the complaint. So we now have a consent calendar. Oh, I see. We need a motion to approve the consent calendar. Okay. Yes. I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar, which now has just the one item, 2310 8th Street on it. And I would like a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Cecilia seconded. Good.
Okay.
That's great. Your first motion, Cecilia. All right. So we have a motion. We have a second. let's take a vote.
Okay. Board Member Trigu,
Yes.
Duffy,
Yes.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Lunapara,
Yes.
Vice Chair O'Keefe,
Yes.
Chair Khan,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
and Sanderson.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. And Debbie, thank you again for raising our awareness on this new issue that we need to continue to figure out. That brings us to, so the 2310 8th Street use permit is approved, which brings us to the action calendar, 2000 San Pablo Avenue, public hearing to allow the retail sale of beer and wine for off-site consumption. And where are we in terms, we're okay in terms of caption or break. Okay. So the planner for this, Samantha?
That is Russell. Oops. Should be coming over. I have a really long delay for some reason. Did he come over? Yes,
There
there
is Russell Rowe. Russell, welcome to the zoning adjustments board. Have you presented to ZAB previously?
I have not.
Well, it's
welcome.
It's great to have you here. Welcome to the
Thank
crew.
you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so you can hear me and see me now. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, are you able to see my cover page?
Yep.
I'm not hearing anything from all of you all of a sudden.
Yes.
Okay,
We're all
great.
muted.
Okay, great, thanks.
Watch our thumbs.
So the case in front of us is for the 7-Eleven store at 2000 San Pablo Avenue to add retail sales of beer and wine under a Type 20 ABC license to their existing store. Just briefly, the background is the 7-Eleven has been there for just about 10 years. It was approved by ZAB in February of 2013. And at the time, they did not propose alcohol sales, and there was a condition on that use permit that alcohol sales were not allowed. So 7-Eleven is coming back now about 10 years later to add beer and wine. The 7-Eleven is at the southwest corner of the intersection of San Pablo and University Avenues. This is a view looking south through that intersection. You can see 7-Eleven on the right, and on the left, various retail stores and restaurants and so on. And looking northward across that intersection, you'll see the 7-Eleven on the near left, and on the far left, the Wells Fargo building, and on the far right, the what used to be a pet food store. It's now an empty tenant space. And this is just a view from above the 7-Eleven store here, where the red marker is, and on the southwest corner. And this is the zoning picture. The store is in the West Berkeley commercial area in a designated node, which the nodes are meant to promote pedestrian access to concentration of various retail and other commercial uses. And as you can see, there are a variety of residential zones nearby in the neighborhood. And this is just a quick look at the site plan, the 7-Eleven store on the corner with access right on the corner. an adjacent tenant space, which I believe is vacant at the moment, and then a small rear parking lot that is accessed from University Avenue. So the 7-Eleven is applying for a type 20 ABC license, which allows the sale of beer and wine only for off-site consumption. And per the zoning ordinance, if there is another existing ABC license of that type within 1,000 feet of the subject site, then ZAB has some additional findings to consider, which you've got in your the staff report. So I won't go into detail here. The one type 20 that does exist is the Spanish Table grocery store or market on San Pablo Avenue. I did also want to point out that there is also a type 21 license at St. Helena Liquor on San Pablo Avenue. And I'm pointing this out because it's a very similar license type, but with the addition of the sale of distilled spirits. So those are the two kind of similar type licenses within 1,000 feet of the subject site. As is typically the case with alcoholic beverage use permits, the police provided a letter with their commentary on the project. And in their letter, they pretty much just said two things. They had some concern about existing crime in the parking lot diagonally across the intersection. That would be next to that vacant store that used to be the pet food store. And but then they said they recommended that 7-Eleven ownership and staff develop a relationship with the area coordinator and other police officers in order to address any concerns with the proposal. There was a fair amount of public comment. The comments in favor were in the form of petitions supplied by the 7-Eleven franchise owner. There were 267 signatures in favor of the beer and wine sales, primarily because they thought it was convenient while they were buying groceries and other things at the site. And then we received 22 letters and emails from neighbors opposed to the project because of existing crime in the area and people sleeping in doorways and alcohol consumption on the streets and related litter. And they are concerned that the 7-Eleven selling will increase these problems. ZAB, in order to approve the proposal, ZAB has to find the typical findings of non-detriment and find that it's consistent with the general plan. And as I mentioned before, additional findings of convenience and necessity because there is another similar license type within 1,000 feet. Staff's analysis just basically consisted of these points that the sales of beer and wine will not be the store's primary use. It would contribute additional tax revenue to the city. The project is consistent with the CW zoning area, which allows the sale of beer and wine, and that the site is not within 1,000 feet of any public park or public school. And then finally, if staff voted to approve, we would have the standard, alcoholic beverage conditions, as well as several conditions that were proposed by the applicant. And those include they wouldn't sell malt liquor or fortified wine products. They would not sell single bottles or cans of beer. The display area for alcoholic beverages would be no more than 10% of the total sales floor area. That they would have digital cameras monitoring the alcohol sales. That when alcoholic beverages were not available for sale during those hours, they would lock the refrigerators. And then finally, while the store is open from 5 a.m. to midnight, they would limit alcohol sales from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So that was their proposal. And I can answer any questions if anybody has questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Russell. A good, thorough presentation. Questions for Russell before we invite the applicant to speak. Russell, I have one question. You mentioned that there are two other similar licenses within 1,000 square feet, 1,000 linear feet. It looks like it's for the outer edge of that 1,000 feet, but there are those two. You said that there were certain findings that we needed to make as a commission, or that you needed to make and recommend we support in order to find in favor of this application. Could you outline that a little more specifically for our benefit?
Yes. Excuse me a moment.
And if you could direct us to the page, is it the other findings on page 5?
I am going for that right now. I'm sorry. And that should be under findings.
I think maybe page 2. I just want to be sure I'm looking at the right. Under findings and conditions, page 2 of 5. Attachment number 1. Which actually says there's only one, and I think that is only one type 20 ABC license within 1,000.
Yeah, there's only one type 20 within 1,000 feet. I am sorry, I am not finding.
Why don't you look for that and we can come back to you?
Yeah.
What are you looking for, Charles? I can dig through it while people answer. While Russell.
Yeah, I believe what my real question is attachment number 1, findings and conditions. Samantha, on page 2 of that document is item Roman numeral 3, other findings for approval, where it specifically references the 1,000 feet. And I was wondering if that was, if any of those findings were the findings that, because Russell had mentioned that there were specific findings in code that had to be met if you were within 1,000 feet. Maybe that's not actually what you meant.
Yeah, those are the it is so if there is another establishment with the same license type within 1,000 feet,
yes,
then you have to make the public convenience or necessity findings.
Yeah, and those are the findings. I'm sorry.
These are the findings that are listed.
So under Roman number 3, number 1, that those are the findings that ZAB has to consider.
I see. I get you. Okay, thank you for that, Russell, and thank you, Samantha. Debbie, you have a question?
No, I just was saying that page 7 of the staff report goes through what the required findings are in the staff analysis.
Okay.
And then
page 7 of staff report. Okay,
staff report
thank you.
is an analysis.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. Yeah, I'm not as up on all this as people like Igor tend to be, who really reads it more closely. Thank you.
Okay.
Very good. Then let's bring in the applicant. Oh, Joey, first.
Yeah. Oh.
Question.
Yes, thank you. To the applicant, I had a question about how you collected the signatures in favor and how you recorded opposition from the community. Could you go more into
We haven't heard from the applicant yet, so why don't you hold your question till after we hear from them, and then you can ask them.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Right, this is staff presentation.
Yeah, Russell just did the staff presentation.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Yeah, I made a similar mistake myself earlier tonight. Okay, very good. So we have a caller who called in from a 415 number, and you're the first. Are you the applicant? Russell, do you know who the applicant is?
I believe
Motorola. If you're the applicant, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. And if you're not the applicant, put your hand down, because it's not time to speak yet. Is Ryan Kroll the applicant?
Yeah, Ryan Kroll would be at least one of the applicants.
Tarun Takiar?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay. Ryan and Tarun, you have 5 minutes for your combined presentation. You can divide it as you wish.
Russell, could you please stop sharing your screen so we can put the timer up?
I'm trying. Something happened to, I think the timer is now up. I'm not sure what happened.
I was able to override it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was stuck and this whole time I've been trying to not share it. Is it unshared now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so Ryan, do you want to use the full 5 minutes, or do you want to yield a few minutes to Tarun? What's your
good evening. This is Ryan Kroll. I'm not assume you can hear me. My plan was I was going to speak for a few minutes and then share the remaining minutes with Mr. Takiar. So as long as he's on right now, then I can begin.
Okay, yeah, Tarun is on, and we can. He needs to unmute though.
Yeah, I'm here.
Very good, Tarun.
Okay, well, great. Well, good evening, everyone. First, I want to start off and just thank staff for the hard work and preparation on this, and specifically Mr. Rowe for being available to answer a lot of questions along the way. And we agree with staff recommendation that the use permit should be granted and the determination of public convenience or necessity found. As he touched upon, the police, as was set forth in the findings, the police do not believe that adding a small amount of beer and wine as we're requesting will add to the crime of the area. As suggested in the police letter back in July, we have reached out with the BPD Area 4 coordinator and just recently spoke with Officer Brian Hartley, who said that he had no issues with the application. I'm sorry if I'm moving quickly, but I want to make sure Mr. Takiar has enough time. And bottom line is that this request, we believe, is consistent with the commercial zoning designation here. And at the end of the day, the store really is in need of this additional availability to provide one-stop shopping for its customers. The store is having a bit of a hard time. And the problem with being a convenience store is that if you don't provide the convenience for all your customers, they go somewhere else. So the issue has been for quite some time here that customers want to buy a bottle of wine or a craft beer or a six-pack, and they can't. And so ultimately, they go somewhere else for all of that. So we don't just lose the small amount of beer or wine we intend to sell. We lose the milk, the eggs, the diapers, the chips, the toilet paper, all the other sales from there, which is a real hardship on the store. And this has, been touched upon, but we had over 260 people sign petitions. And for years, Tarun has been hearing from people, why can't you do this for me? Why can't you do this for me? So that's the reason we're here today. And just to be frank, we've been through this process. We've heard some members of the community having concerns. And so it was 7-Eleven and Tarun in conjunction with him that we volunteered, we think, a lot of conditions that should address all of the concerns that they have. Those conditions are limiting the alcohol sales from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we'll lock the cooler doors for alcohol when those are not in sale, so we don't have to worry about theft. There will be no single cans of beer or single bottles of beer sold, no malt liquor, no fortified wines, which are typically the type of alcohol that, generally we find cause problems. And we're just saying we're not going to sell them at all. And we're also going to limit the amount of alcohol to about 10% of the floor space. It'll be less than that, but that's the maximum. And so the whole point of this is just to allow a small amount of beer and wine to be sold, as our customers have been requesting for the last 9 years, 10 years or so. And I'll let Tarun finish off what he needs to say.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Tarun?
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'm thankful to all the members for participating today. My name is Tarun Takiar. Since 2013, myself and my 5 employees at the store has been serving the Berkeley community. As a part of this community, we have been donating pizza to Allen's Love Community Laundry and Food Program. We also offer free coffee to our local police department. One of the feedback from my customer is to have beer and wine available at the store. Therefore, Therefore, I'm here to seek the permission for Berkeley community for it. We have been doing well pre-COVID. However, during and after COVID, we have seen a huge decline in our sales. This store has been providing livelihood to myself and my employees. Due to decline in my sales, my biggest worry is I will not be able to survive and might lose my employees and business. I mean, my work, family will be impacted for this loss as well. In order to sustain my business, I would like to satisfy the needs of my customer by selling a limited assortment of beer and wine. And to address the concern of my community, we will not be selling single can of beer, malt liquor, and fortified wines. We will be limiting the hours to sell alcohol from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And the cooler doors will be locked after 8 p.m. to prevent any issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tarun. Really appreciate you being timely. And thank you for coming tonight and for the years you provided service to the community. Any questions for the applicants? Zoe, this is your big chance.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, applicant, for your presentation. I just had a question about the signatures of approval. When did you collect that, and for how long? I was just curious about the details.
Sure. This is Ryan. They were collected at the store itself at the point of sale. I think it was generally just regular customers that we knew had been asking about it, or various people we'd asked to sign that they were supports. There was two batches we got. The first one, I think it was right before, it was late October. And I think you look at the dates, if you look at the petitions, they're almost all dated. I know it's probably about 4 or 5 days that they were collected. And there was a second batch in late November, and that was about the same time frame of about 4 or 5 days. But there are dates on all of them, so if you give me a second, I might be able to tell you a little better specificity.
Does that adequately answer your question, Zoe?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you, Ryan. Igor?
Thank you so much for the presentation. I have 2 questions. In some of the public comments that we received, or written comments, there was mention of a 7-Eleven on Sacramento and University that does not sell alcohol and allegedly seems to be doing well, and understanding that these are perhaps different franchisees, different circumstances. I was curious if you could speak to maybe anything you can discern from the situation, why one store half a mile away, if business is good, what is different about the business model there? I'll stop there so you can answer that question. I do have another one.
Sure. Thank you for the question. As far as difference in the business model, there isn't going to be one. It's more or less, it's a convenience store. I do not personally know if that store is doing well. I saw that comment. I don't know how the person who made the comment would know whether the store is doing well or not. I can say in general, these types of stores have had a hard time the last few years as people move a little bit more towards delivery of grocery products, and delivery in general. It's had a negative impact on sales, but I do not know how that store is doing, and I can't really, unfortunately, give you much more information than that.
Thank you. And then could you just remind me, I think this was in the police officer report, but can you comment on the numbers of calls for service that were received from the store itself and what they were for over the period that it's been in operation?
Sure, I'm just flipping up to the police letter. Move down. I think, well, here we go. For the 7-Eleven location itself, is the letter from the police back in July states that there were 10 theft calls over the time period from January 1, 2021 through July 11, 2022, the following year. And then it also has a list of calls, not specific to 7-Eleven, but in the immediate vicinity of the 7-Eleven. And there were 0 public intoxication calls, 31 disturbance calls, and 6 assault and battery calls. And I think that's exhibits or attachment 6 to the staff report.
Yeah, I see. Thank you.
Sure.
Could you, I mean, we do have that. Thanks for reciting what's in front of us. And I probably should have asked this question instead. Do you have any knowledge of generally the volume of calls that were received prior to January 1st, 2021? I think this establishment has been in operation since 2013, maybe 2014, something like that.
Yeah, 2013. I do not, given the police's statement of, non-opposition, I would imagine the numbers would be somewhere around this. But I don't know. Calls for service, as the title calls, is someone calls the police and they do something with it. 7-Eleven wouldn't be aware of anything unless there was a real issue. And so I don't have that information. I'm not sure how many calls for service were before July 1st, 2020 or January 1st, 2021.
Yeah, and to be specific, I meant from the store itself.
Sure, like I said, I don't, and I think only the police would, because we're not given that update regularly from the police, so we're not aware.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I believe you're next, Joey, and then, or unless your hand is still up from the earlier question.
Sorry, that was a mistake.
Okay, then Debbie.
I have a question about the location of the alcohol in the store. There's a on the site plan or the floor plan, it shows this roll of doors into a cooler. And my question is, will all of the alcoholic beverages be in that cooler? The reason I ask, I was in a CVS today, different one for a different reason. And I noticed they had the coolers, and then opposite the coolers, they had a whole row of wines that could not be locked. So I'm just curious if all of the alcohol, the beer and the wine, would be in the cooler that is lockable.
Sure. And actually, is there, there's a Tim Gillette from 7-Eleven operations that should be on the call. If he's on, would you mind letting him in? He would be the best person. Actually, I'm sorry. He's actually even texting me right now to answer that question. So the answer is we can have that all be in the cooler so that when it's locked, there's no easily accessible alcohol.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Debbie. Michael?
I may have missed this already, but one of the statements was made that post-pandemic that the convenience store was really having a hard time economically. And I'm just curious about whether, the other establishments that sell in the area, is there something different about this industry? Like, is there something different about this store and the financial implications post-pandemic versus the other small businesses in the area?
are you talking about the other small businesses in the area? You're talking about other like local grocery marts, smaller markets, neighborhood markets, or
Yeah, correct. So when we heard from the owner, he mentioned, you know, the economic impact in keeping his business open. And, you know, and I think he mentioned something like, you know, we've had a really hard time after that. And I'm just curious, was it unique? Yeah, that's my question.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of businesses have had a really hard time since the pandemic. I don't think there's anything different about this neighborhood market that would make it different than other neighborhood markets. To the extent that businesses are different, there might be some other impact. I mean, some businesses have actually done, you know, quite well since because of the change in format and how kind of people's lives have changed. But no, I think generally, most local businesses and smaller businesses have had a hard time in the store. You know, it's Tarun, it's 4 or 5 employees, and they've seen a noticeable change, not just post-pandemic, but you know, from the beginning of the pandemic. You know, and that's why we're coming here today or tonight.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Michael. We should open this up to the public. Samantha, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just to kind of address Board Member Thompson's question. We have seen in a lot of our alcohol permits, a lot of different businesses trying to add alcohol sales like beer and wine. You know, anything from food service establishments, you know, getting licenses to be able to sell offsite consumption like bottles of wine, and also like various retail stores. And so this is one way that we've heard small businesses trying to increase their economic viability. I've noticed that in all of the applications we've seen.
Thank you, Samantha. That's helpful, providing a little context. Does that help a little, Michael? Great. I would like to open this to the attendees who've been patiently waiting through this hearing to speak on this issue. This is the moment you've been waiting for. If you came to address this commission to speak your mind on the use permit we have in front of us. I only see 4 hands raised. And I just want to advise you, oh, there, very good. Please raise your hand now so I can identify, see, we have 6 now. How many people want to talk on this? 7, okay, it's increasing. 8, all right, don't be shy. If you want to speak, please raise your hand so that you can queue up. When we did this in a public sector, you had to sign up to speak, and that was so that the chair could judge whether it was necessary to restrict the time for people who were speaking. So I'm asking to get a head count here, a hand count, and I see 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 people. Another person just raised their hand. I'll give you guys another 5 or 10 minutes to get in the queue. There's another one. So we have 10 people wishing to speak. I mean, it makes a difference if 3 people are speaking or 10, because it takes longer. Okay, well, these 10 people then, I'll be recognizing you and going once, going twice. All right, that's going to be Tam Crane first. And I am going, because it's only 10 people, not 11, 12, or 13. Just became 11. I'm going to go ahead and allow everyone to use the full 2 minutes, but ask that you don't repeat what someone else said. It doesn't win your case to do that. It's just taking our time, and it doesn't win friends to do that. So I just say, I agree with so-and-so, and that says a lot to us. Try to respect each other's time and our time when you speak. It'll be the first time it's ever happened if you do, but maybe you can show us what you can do here. And we will have a timer up. So Tam Crane, you are the first person we are recognizing.
Okay, hi everybody. Thanks so much for hearing us out tonight. Really appreciate it. I'm a neighbor of the 7-Eleven. I live at 10th and Alston, quite close to it, and I am asking you to oppose their alcohol permit. And the reason why is because I don't know if you guys have ever walked this corner or this particular area of San Pablo University, but it is. It's riddled with trash. It's riddled with people hanging out, asking for money, especially right in front of the 7-Eleven. And there are 5 schools around this particular 7-Eleven within a 2 to 3 block radius. So that's anywhere from Rosa Parks Elementary to my child's school, Nia House Preschool. And the last thing that we need is, honestly, another liquor store. We have at least 5 within a 2-block radius. So I totally understand the argument of economic impact to the 7-Eleven. To be honest, I'd like to see the financials. I think it's one thing for somebody to say they need more money. I think it's another thing to actually need money. And the impact to this particular corner would just be even more detrimental because it's already a tragically littered, dirty, unsafe feeling place to be. And so, I question why there are so many liquor stores in this neighborhood. It is a traditionally redlined neighborhood. And so I wonder about that quite a bit. Especially when you compare it to other neighborhoods where there are significantly less liquor stores, like in North Berkeley. So I don't believe that another liquor store would benefit this neighborhood. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Tam. Laura Babbitt, you're recognized.
Great, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. I just want to clarify what I heard earlier around, it sounded like people believe that the police are agreeing that this is okay. And what I heard in the presentation is that they had concerns about crime in the lot and that they should work to build relations with the area and improve safety, which is not the same as them saying that they are fairly in support of this proposal. But my planned comments are to introduce myself and to thank you all. My name is Laura Babbitt, and I am the Vice President of the Berkeley School Board, who is also a resident that lives very near University in San Pablo. I'm here today to request that we as a community put students first by limiting the sale of alcohol in locations close to several preschools, elementary schools, parks, and low-income housing. As someone who manages a finance department, I understand why 7-Eleven would want to take part in this revenue stream. The location for people to grab a snack, a beer, and while they wait for the bus, walking or riding a bike to and from makes it ideal for a business owner. And this is why we have city leadership like you to step in. Because this location is already near several other liquor stores, and when supplies go up, prices go down. Access for those who don't understand time, place, or in moderation goes up. And even more people will not only come to this area for alcohol, but more of our students will be impacted by the results of adult impaired judgment. University in San Pablo is a hub that so many students and families use. My own children have spent a great deal of time, depending on what was happening with AC Transit, at that very bus stop. If we as a city are going to ask that we cut down on emissions, walk, bike, public transit more, then businesses in our city also have to do its part by limiting access to alcohol and the impacts of alcoholism. As such, I strongly urge you to decline this request for yet another retailer to sell alcohol in our kids' neighborhoods. It's leaders like you that our kids depend on in times like these. Please make this no choice for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, for coming tonight to speak. Appreciate your comments. Alex Sharenko. Alex, welcome.
Good evening, ZAB. Wonderful to see so many of your faces. I've served with several of you and have the utmost respect for the work you're doing tonight. Thank you for your service. I'm calling in because I live about a fourth of a mile from the 7-Eleven, and I'm asking you to deny their application to sell alcohol. West Berkeley is awash in an unacceptably high level of gun violence, in no small part fueled by the wide availability of cheap alcohol in our neighborhood. Just this past October, a man was shot in a dispute in a liquor store, a block from my house and just over 1,000 feet from 7-Eleven. For days, there was a large blood stain in the parking lot that you couldn't miss as you walked by the store, as a reminder of the danger that we live under every day. Mountains of peer-reviewed evidence tell us that more alcohol leads to more violence in our communities. So the approval of this license to add more alcohol to our community will only further exacerbate the cycle of violence that we find ourselves mired in. When I moved into West Berkeley, a friend that lives in another part of Berkeley, he cynically told me, no one cares about West Berkeley. Well, you members of ZAB, tonight you have the opportunity to care about West Berkeley. You have the opportunity to care about the people living in this community. And I'm pleading with you for empathy to understand the lives that we are living and the violence that we are living with. I'm pleading with you to value the lives of the people in this community more than the profits of a corporation. I'm pleading with you to be a part of the solution to our violence problem. And I'm pleading with you to vote to deny this. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to my pleas.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you for your service to the community over the years too. The next person is Raymond. Raymond, you're recognized.
Hello, this is Raymond.
Raymond.
And yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I support the application because I shop here at this 7-Eleven and I buy all my groceries here. And at the same time, I can grab a pack of 6 pack of beer or wine on my way. And this will be very convenient. The store is very clean, well organized, and I know the people working there and the owner. So it will be very convenient if they add alcohol, so I don't have to go other location. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Our next speaker is Vivek Taman. I think I said that right, maybe. Vivek, you are muted. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So good evening. So I am a customer of this business location. I just wanna say something which is said like before, like the gun thing. I guess it's the gun license which they have to do something with the gun licensing thing. We are talking about the wine license or the beer license. So this business means a lot to our community, especially helping us during the COVID time, like by providing us essential supplies during the affordable price. This store, I personally go there. This is one of the clean and organized stores. They really do treat the customers and the community really well. I will be more than happy if I can grab some wine, but while shopping around, like for my grocery shopping, as a customer, I support them for their beer and wine license.
Thank you very much, Vivek, for coming in and speaking tonight. Our next person doesn't have a name, but is calling in from a 510 area code, and you are recognized. You are muted also. 510, last 3 digits are 26. There you go.
Yes, hi. My name is Renu, and I would actually like to support the local business owner and their application to get the alcohol license. I actually had a conversation with the owner. I obviously had the same concerns that some of the other speakers that came prior to me about schools being around and crime, etc.
We had a lengthy conversation about it, and I don't know if he educated me on it. He explained it to me in great length that this particular franchise, meaning 7-Eleven, actually have a very stringent program in place where not only does ABC obviously can come and find out if we are if the store is checking for IDs, etc. But 7-Eleven have a program of their own where they send common customers, or you can call it undercover customers, and who are buying alcohol who may be of underage, just to make sure that the store employees are doing their job. So he did assure me that this program is thoroughly followed, and if by chance 7-Eleven finds that the employees are not doing their job, the store can be then taken away from the owner. So I just wanted to educate myself and educate everybody else that the owner has assured me that they would definitely follow these sort of guidelines. I would encourage the city hall members to visit this place. I'm a frequent shopper here because it is one of the most impeccably clean, well-kept store. I don't want to go to some of the other liquor stores because the way their conditions are. So I definitely want to see this business survive. And
You're out of time if you can wrap up.
Yes, basically, I'd like to end it with that. I would hate to see this business go. They're willing to do everything that they can to follow the law, the guidelines, etc., to avoid getting into situations that work or concerns that were discussed earlier.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next person is also a phone call in from the 415 area code. You're also muted, and you need to unmute in your last word. There you go.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. This is Nicola Spence. I'm the owner of Alpha Design Custom Furniture. I've appreciated the arguments, but I'm on the spot every day. I'm got a PhD and I'm cleaning up all the mess that's coming onto my side of the street. That's a huge concern. The homeless are a huge concern. They buy from the 7-Eleven, and I'm faced on a daily basis with cleaning up defecation and urination. It really has been a huge issue for me. There are several parameters working on, policy things that are in place. To what degree do the homeless have precedence over the small business owners? I want to see the 7-Eleven succeed, as I want to see my store succeed, but not at the expense of the neighborhood. I think the neighborhood and the community, it is a very fragile corner. What used to be the Petco has closed. Wells Fargo is closing next January. It means the brunt of the work on that corner will be either with me, Alpha Design, or the 7-Eleven. And, I'm not prepared anymore. I'm speaking up because I've had 2 long years, and in fact, I've been in business for over 11 years on the corner, and I don't see any improvement. It scares me that the violence in the area is strong. We had gunshots where students rushed into our store and hid under our sofas. It's been proven with the sale of alcohol, it will only worsen that area.
You're out of
I
time.
think there are other ways. I'm out of time. Well, thank you, everybody. I
Thank-
appreciated
Yeah,
the
thank you.
ability to speak.
What's your name again?
Sorry, Nicola Spence.
Makia? Did you say Makia?
Nicola, Nicola, and my last name is Spence, Spence. And
Okay.
I've already sent my report into the board through Mr. Russell Rowe.
Thank you for coming tonight. And thank you for being
Thank you.
corner. We have one more person of R11, and what we have here is exactly what I thought would happen, which is we got 7 more people raising their hands. I will not be recognizing you. I gave you adequate warning, and I wouldn't have given everyone 2 minutes since you raised your hands. And we have a captioners break coming up. So Kamal, you're our last speaker, and then we'll return it to the commission.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I go there quite often. I pass from there, and 7-Eleven is a most convenient to shop. You can just quickly go in and come out. They're very fast, and they are well lit, very safe. And I always, I'm never scared to send my kids to 7-Eleven because they always check IDs. They make sure that a person who is buying smokes or beer or wine, they have the ID. If not, they are denied. But I think 7-Eleven is a very good platform where people feel safe. It's a very family-like store, and people deserve to have beer or wine if they want to buy. I myself, I was surprised when I started going there that you guys don't have beer and wine, really, and I have to go all the way to a liquor store or a grocery store where I don't feel a very friendly atmosphere. I feel safe when I enter 7-Eleven. You see how well lit it is. How many cameras are there? They have so many security systems where with the press of a button, you can call the cops if there's any trouble. I think they deserve to have that license so that they can grow and families can go and shop there and they feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamal. We need to give the captioner a break at 9 o'clock, which is now. And we do have one person that Igor believes may raise their hand at the beginning, identified simply as Berkeley resident. We'll have to hear from you when we come back. But after that, I will return it to the commission here to discuss these interesting points that have been raised. So let's see, it's now a minimum 5 minutes for the captioners break. Is that right, or 10? Okay, very good. It's almost 9 o'clock. Please, if everyone can be back at 9:10 promptly, hopefully we can bring this back to the commission and wrap things up tonight so that everyone can be free to continue their lives. Thank you. See you at 9:10.
Thank you.
want to welcome everybody back. Thank you for your timely attendance. I appreciate that. We have one more individual who is simply identified as Berkeley resident. You'll be our last speaker, Berkeley resident.
All right.
We can hear you, yes.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and keep it short since everyone has had plenty of time to say what they need. My name is James Mataresi. I actually live a little further away than I think everyone else who's commented. I'm a little further down San Pablo toward the Ashby. I'm on Ashby, basically, Ashby and San Pablo. I end up going down here because this 7-Eleven is right near a number of other locations that I shop at down in that direction. And while I totally understand the arguments against here, and we can 100% have a conversation about redlining, I don't think that these historic systemic injustices or the sort of broader crime problem that Berkeley has should be the responsibility of a single shop owner. I do, on the other hand, think that we should go ahead and grant this just because I've noticed stores sort of leaving that area, and when a critical mass of stores leave an area, there become fewer and fewer reasons for people to go to that area and spend money and generate tax money for the city. And for that reason alone, I really think that it's just a better idea to go ahead and let them go ahead and sell those new products. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience sticking around through a long meeting. That closes the public hearing part of this meeting, and I'm going to bring it back to the panel here, the commissioners. We typically give the applicant a minute or two to respond to specific comments that were raised by the community. It's in fact standard policy. So Tarun, if you or Ryan, if you wish to take a minute or two to rebut or comment on the concerns that were voiced tonight, this is your big chance.
I think I was muted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Ryan.
All right, thank you. I will be quick. But I wanted to thank those that came out in support. I think they made comments that were in addition to what we have made. With respect to the concerns that were raised, I mean, I think the response is simple, is that that's the reason we imposed and volunteered the conditions that we're talking about. You know, when we're telling, you know, the community that we're not going to sell single cans of or single bottles of beer, or we're not going to sell malt liquor, we're not going to sell fortified wines, that is the type of alcohol that usually is the problem, is that that's the cheap booze with high alcohol that attracts problems. We don't want that at our store. It's not good for our business. It's not good for the community. And so while if those conditions were not imposed, I could understand the concerns that are being raised, but that's why we volunteered those after listening and reading the letters that were submitted and hearing, you know, what the concerns were. And so I think the important thing for this board to do is not look at this as an alcohol request. Look at this as specifically what it is, that we're talking about from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., a hard stop at 8 p.m. and alcohol locked up, and the type of alcohol that's being sold. And the customers who are speaking to support are the ones that want to have a craft beer, a six-pack of beer, a bottle of wine. They want that at the store. The bad element, we're not selling the alcohol that attracts to them. And so if anything, what we'll be able to do is bring in the customers who have to go down to the liquor store they don't want to go and come to us. I mean, to me, that sounds like a better solution for the community, is having this store, the one that people talk positively about, not the stores that they speak negatively about, be where responsible adults can go to have a beverage while they buy groceries. And so I appreciate everyone's comments. We're not immune to the concerns they have, but we really do feel that these conditions, and I've been doing this for quite some time. This is the most stringent conditions I've ever seen volunteered or really even posed. And the point is we get the concerns, but we're meeting them head on. And Tarun has done a good job. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Tarun. Ryan took all of your time there, and I didn't let the people speak out of turn, so I'm gonna have to hold that to be consistent. We're gonna bring this back to the that does officially close our public hearing, and this is now a hearing among the commissioners. Very interested in hearing what you guys and gals think about the testimony you heard. I'm of several minds myself. Who would like to volunteer their thoughts? I'm going to just name somebody if no one speaks up. Igor, you're a brave man. Thank you.
Yeah.
I see Joey and Shoshana. Thank you for
get the brunt of it later, I'm sure. Yeah, so this time flies when you're having fun. 10 years ago, I think to the day, we dealt with this project. It was my first ZAB meeting, and it was the initial use permit for the 7-Eleven. I actually recall that meeting lasted for hours. There was a lot of community interest on both sides. I'm still living down that mistake I made of missing my flight, and it was our engagement. But I really commend the franchisee of the 7-Eleven, the team that has held this down for 10 years. I do live in the neighborhood, not too far away. I do walk that intersection. The challenge for me, I am extremely sympathetic to the request, and I am deeply appreciative of the conditions that were volunteered by the applicant. And that is an act of immense good faith. What is challenging to me is the situation in this neighborhood, and the testimony that has been provided by neighbors in written and verbal form. And I know that there are definitely valid opinions on both sides, but having walked this neighborhood, I am not sure right now if I could support additional opportunities to purchase alcohol, with the concern that it may contribute to further degradation. I don't make this decision lightly, and I am looking forward to hearing what my colleagues have to say. For 10 years, I have voted, for the record, to approve every single beer and wine and spirit permit that has come before us. Sometimes we have asked for additional conditions to be put in before I voted with the board on that. But this is a special case because I know this neighborhood. I have experienced the challenges that are endemic, unfortunately, to that particular thoroughfare. And I am cautiously optimistic may not be the right word, but I am hopeful that with additional approvals of other projects to activate that thoroughfare, maybe some of those challenges will go away or at least be mitigated. And I agree with the commenter who said that the 7-Eleven franchise should not be expected to be responsible for the weight that intersection carries. But neither do I personally feel comfortable right now voting for something that I fear may contribute to further challenges. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for leading off, Igor. We now have practically every member of the commission ready to speak, so you lit a fuse there. Joey?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Igor, for sharing your experience on ZAB. I actually wanted to announce to all of the members of ZAB, new ones and old, that this will be my last meeting tonight. And so,
oh my God.
With that, and hearing Igor saying that this was kind of related to your first ZAB meeting, was really, I don't know, I just found that very, yeah, just a funny event. But going on to the item itself and the issues itself, thank you, Igor, for sharing your concerns. I would like to first start off with what the applicant's presentation kind of sounded to me, and I appreciate their input and effort as well, especially after hearing from Igor's perspective of the history of this property. But I did want to say that the argument of, you know, we need to add a license to try to outcompete our market competitors nearby, our neighbors nearby with the other liquor stores, does not sound to me a compelling argument oriented for community and the community concerns laid out by, for example, Ketanji Brown, I believe, of the school board, of the local school board. And so I think that argument of making sure that we prioritize our schools nearby as well, and considering that demographic in juxtaposition with these businesses, I think is also an important and valid concern brought up by the community. And I would definitely weigh that more than just consumer interests. Yes. And so I'm also leaning towards, actually, I would like to motion to oppose this project for the reasons stated. Thank you.
So that's a motion to approve the application?
No, to oppose.
Oppose. That's that. Based on your comments, I was questioning my own ears. Okay. So that is to deny the application.
Yes.
Okay. Who seconded that? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Then this is now a discussion of the motion. Shoshana, you're next.
Thanks. I'm going to oppose that motion. I am very much in favor of this project. I'm actually going to make a substitute motion to approve it. And I will explain why. I've also been on the board almost 10 years. Igor, you beat me by 1 month. This was the meeting before when I was appointed. But I have never once voted against an alcohol license. I'm an alcohol libertarian. I think prohibition was bad public policy. I don't think it's the answer. I acknowledge all the problems that were discussed in the neighborhood. I don't deny any of that. I just don't see any reason why, when there's already plenty of alcohol available, not just here, but throughout the city of Berkeley. By the way, I live in North Berkeley, and I can think off the top of my head of 5 places I can go to within a few blocks of my house where I can purchase beer and wine. So it's not just here, it's widely available throughout the city. And so I don't see any reason to deny a business that would like to be competitive in a difficult economy the right to sell alcohol and be successful. I see no benefit to that whatsoever. I don't think it's going to solve the problems of the community. I think it's going to be very harmful for a business that impacts real people who are trying to do their best and survive. And I'm absolutely in favor of this. I just want to also add that the business appears to be being very reasonable in terms of the limits they're putting on the times of alcohol sales, the types of alcohol they're selling, and how they're going to store it. And especially because of that, I see absolutely no reason to deny this. So I'm voting for it, as I always do for all liquor licenses. Thank you.
Thank you, Shoshana. So
I made a motion, right? Yeah, I made a substitute motion
yes,
to approve.
There's a substitute motion now on the floor. We're still waiting for a second, but there is a motion being offered. Yes?
I am not seconding the substitute motion, so I'm speaking with regards to the first motion.
Okay.
Right? First of all, I remember growing up in Berkeley, I know a lot of this. I remember this intersection well as a kid. I remember this intersection growing up throughout there most of my life. Now I live nearby, and now my kids go there. Mr. Takiar, I first want to just say, I remember the ZAB hearing in 2013 when you first got started in the neighborhood. And since then, I've been a patron. My family has been patrons, and you've always been very professional. Your staff has always been professional to us and to other patrons as well. So thank you. Fast forward, not just from back then, but also to today. Obviously, this is a struggling intersection. This area has struggled, at least the street has struggled for quite some time, and I'm very familiar with it. And I've also, I know I say this every time, I read every word from all of the public comment and every word in the packet as well regarding this issue. And I think it's obvious that based on, there's been vacancies over time, and there's obviously more vacancies now than I think I've ever seen. So to still, the reality that a store on the corner, that a 7-Eleven is struggling is not a surprise to me. It's obvious that many stores have struggled there too. For me, speaking more specifically to the motion and my position here on the zoning board, I think more specifically, we have to speak to non-detriment, general non-detriment, and that the permit does not substantially degrade the existing urban fabric of the street area. Or we would also need to agree that it would not be expected to substantially degrade, again, the existing urban fabric of the street. And it says, would not be detrimental to health, safety, peace, morals, comfort, and general welfare of the persons residing or working in the neighborhood. So that's to me the sticky point in some of the language here, is that to me, I do feel like there likely is some alcohol related detriment in the area when you have not just the police reporting it, but you also have a relative saturation of permits and density of permits, especially within that block and the adjacent block. So my comments are, I struggle with the approval of this, and to second Igor's comments, as well as those of Laura Babbitt, thank you. I would vote to oppose this permit.
Thank you for those comments. Yes, we have Debbie and then Michael.
Well, like everyone else, I'm really torn. My primary concern is whether or not, what is the real source of the problem in the neighborhood? It has been problematic for a long time. If anything comes out of this, it's that we as a city need to invest a whole lot of resources in helping this neighborhood make a transition out, not worrying about drugs or alcohol. There's something going on here that has stuck for a decade or more that needs to be thought about. I look at the map and I count. I'm a policy wonk, so that's what I do. And there are 4 off-site beer and wine sales 2 within the 1,000 feet and 2 more outside the 1,000 feet. I don't know if those establishments are what's the source of the problem that the police mentioned and that the neighbors mentioned. And that's where I'm torn. My gut is to say enough already, no more alcohol. But on the other hand, the 7-Eleven has a very good track record managing its store and managing the alcohol sales. So in fact, I sort of would like to talk to the police more or get a better understanding of the source of the problem in this neighborhood. It's not, if you had a 7-Eleven selling beer and wine under the conditions they've agreed to, would that make the situation worse? Or would that help maintain a stable business when there's a lot of problems in the area? As a little history, I was planning manager when this project, and several before it were considered. And in the past, the problem that we had was that the illegal activity was centered on the alcohol stores. And so a lot of what we did prior to 2013 was to shut down the stores that were kind of the center of the illegal activity. And that cleaned up a lot of the bad behavior. This case seems different to me, that the source of the problem may be those other liquor stores that are further away. I don't know, but the source of the problem isn't this 7-Eleven. So I'm still sitting on the fence, and I want to hear what other people have to say, but I wouldn't mind continuing this item so we could get more information from the police department about the nature of the problem. Where does it come from? What have they tried to do? Is a store like 7-Eleven selling beer and wine likely to make it worse? To me, that's an unanswered question. So I'm here to listen.
Thanks, Debbie. I'm not quite sure in the order, but we still have Michael and Kimberly. Cecilia, you had your hand up earlier, but it's not up now. I want to be sure I'm not passing over you.
No, it's okay. I took it down.
Yeah, lot to listen to. Michael?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just thinking about my role on the zoning board, and I feel like it's to kind of represent the people in the community and their wishes. And we heard some really strong testimonies from people who are saying, please we don't need more vices in this neighborhood. And, folks are struggling, and folks are struggling economically, when folks are struggling with addiction. Maybe bringing another vice into it is not helpful. So no, I don't believe that 7-Eleven, it sounds like this is a well-run business, but I still feel like, there's got to be some way to, keep the business in business, keep it profitable, benefit the community without it being a vice of some sort or a potential vice. To me, it feels a bit reckless, and it would bother me to say, yes, let's bring another vice into a fragile area. And especially when half of our neighbors are saying, we live here, please don't. I live, a mile away. So I'm a little bit distant from that space. And if those neighbors are saying, help, we need help, and no, it's not, alcohol or no alcohol, 7-Eleven is not responsible for that community, of course, but we don't want to add to make it more convenient, put more vice in the area. That's it. That's my thoughts for now. Thank you.
Thanks for those thoughtful thoughts, Michael. Kimberly?
I think Dohi was actually raised her hand slightly before me if she wants
Yes,
to go
but
first.
she's already spoken, so
Okay.
I'm going to recognize her after you.
Sounds good. So of course, I appreciate everyone's comments and hearing them before mine, because I am obviously equally as torn about this. It is a very interesting discussion. Obviously, that area is a really prominent area in Berkeley, and I mean, we can see, the issues it has. We can feel it, and we can tell neighbors on both sides care a lot just about the neighborhood, and that's obviously who we want to speak to. I appreciate Deborah kind of saying how it would be interesting to get I don't know, it's hard for me to come up and decide what to vote for tonight. Having more input from people who experience it on the ground would be really interesting. At the same time, I don't want to necessarily force a continuation, and I obviously am curious as to what other commissioners have to say. I don't want to punish the 7-Eleven individual franchise owners, obviously because of an issue that this corner just already has in general. But at the same time, I obviously, if it wasn't just 7-Eleven, if it was a different business coming and asking for a liquor license in that area, I would feel just the same. And obviously that's something that we might experience down the road. I mean, if we either accept or deny this now, doesn't mean that we're not going to get something similar. This could happen anytime. And it is an area that obviously has empty vacancies. So it definitely could be coming up. So for that reason, it makes it hard for me, or, I'm leaning more towards, denying, just because as Michael said, just adding more vices to this area just feels like something that, the community really doesn't want. And I said it hurts because I don't want it to be at the detriment of that 7-Eleven. I don't want to see it go. And it obviously seems like, I can tell the community also thinks that it's not necessarily the problem. So that being said, I know that doesn't really give any more direction yet. I'm still I'll wait to hear at least what Dohi and Igor have to say as well. But, those are kind of my thoughts on a very tough issue. So thank you all so much.
Thanks, Kimberly. Joey, and then Igor. Yes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, every commissioner who provided their input. I'll just make it quick. Sorry, I misspoke about the school board name. I wanted to uplift Laura Babbitt input around the demographic of children and schools in the area, and I just wanted to emphasize kind of those community members in conjunction with the context of the area of focus tonight. And so I just want to put that out there and want to apologize for the confusion with the name.
Thank you, Joey. Igor, and then I'll speak.
Yeah, I want to thank my colleagues for the discussion, and I wanted to thank all the members of the community. I was just taking a quick count of yes and no comments I heard, and it was an almost even split. It kind of reflects where I think most, if not all, of the body is just very, very divided on this question. I appreciate Debbie's request for continuance. However, I think I will be at peace in some way with whatever decision we make tonight, because I have a feeling this will not end here. This will probably be appealed to the city council one way or another. While we have full discretion and certainly have the ability to hear this again and request more information, I think some of the issues that have been brought up around what is it about this corner that makes it particularly challenging, where is this coming from, is actually the council is probably the best equipped place to have it, to be frank. And then the police department and the police chief can prepare and be there at the hearing. if it were to come to council. So I just want to put that out there because we only meet once a month right now, although we'll be meeting more. And I'm sure there are other things that will be coming before us. And I just, I would hate to put the community in a situation where they have to come to potentially 2 more meetings as opposed to potentially 1 more meeting for a final decision. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that, Igor. In terms of the continuance, I'm of a similar mind. I think that we're all quasi-decided, undecided. Shoshana was very clear about her position, and I think Gus was pretty clear about his, but the rest of us are sort of somewhere in between. And I don't think having another hearing is really gonna change that for me personally. I think I would still be divided if we had 3 more hearings. I know this intersection well, we all do. I used to live in the neighborhood just a couple blocks away, and this was my bus stop when I got off from work. And it was, back in the day, that's when I was a young guy, so it was a long time ago. It was scary. I mean, at night, getting off the bus, I really was very aware of my surroundings. It is much better, and it's got a long way to go. And I feel for the store owner who spoke, Ms. Spence, cleaning up defecation and urine, she's not exaggerating. So, and there's a bus stop there, and we all are in favor of public transit, and we need our bus stops, but it is abused by people who sort of take over this bus stop and have abusive language and actions towards people walking by. I've been scared to go by the bus stop sometimes. So I mean, my thoughts break down into this, what's the greater detriment? There is the potential, even though individual cans won't be sold, that someone might walk into the 7-Eleven, grab a 6-pack and commandeer the bus stop and scare people away from it who have legitimate use of it and make the situation worse. I think that's the nightmare scenario. There's another nightmare scenario, which is that this business, which God bless them for making it through the last 10 years and actually being a stable presence on that corner, that they close and shutter their shop, which will be worse, a worse outcome than our approving the liquor sale tonight, to have a shuttered shop. And I don't think a lot of retail wants to really be in that corner. So I don't know. When we talk about detriment, I don't know which is the worst detriment. And I believe them when they say they're struggling. I really do. So folks, I am really in a quandary. I'm a total alcohol libertarian like Shoshana.
Second my motion then.
Well, but I've also got these other feelings. I don't know. I'm not prepared to second the motion. I'm too divided, Shoshana. Cecilia, can you break the situation? I mean, what are we going to do here?
I mean, I've just been really appreciating everybody's input and listening and the public's input. Thank you. I also generally am of the idea that people, should be able to walk to buy alcohol and it shouldn't be excessively limited to them. And I generally also anti-prohibition and and alcohol libertarian, which is a funny way to put it. But I am leaning towards no in this specific instance. I think that there was a lot of I think that we should be really careful in the way that we're talking about this neighborhood in specific, and the way that it as the people that interact with this corner. I'm afraid that it has that we are villainizing and alienating people that inhabit this space and use it for a variety of different reasons and are victims of systemic injustice. I think that like when we're talking about what type of alcohol is being sold, like saying that certain types of alcohol attracts certain types of people, I was just a little concerned about the way that we were talking about that. But I think, and I think that there's already an abundance of places, especially like locally owned places that already sell alcohol, and it is accessible to the people that live nearby. And I am leaning towards no in this moment because I don't think that it will add a significant, it will be a positive impact to the community. And yeah, I think those are all of my thoughts at the moment. I'm also conflicted, which is why I wasn't talking earlier either, but
yeah, well, I think it's fair to say you're conflicted. I mean, that's a reasonable place to be in, sometimes. We have 4 more hands. I would like to bring this to some kind of conclusion tonight. And I am hearing a general consensus. So I think we can have a vote soon, but why don't I hear the 4 of you, and then I might suggest that we take a straw vote or a vote to see if there's a position that will bring us to conclusion tonight. Kimberly?
Yeah, well, in order to get things moving along, I was going to second Dohi's motion to oppose.
Oh, I thought Dohi's motion was seconded. It was not?
Oh,
I believe it.
like Igor,
sorry.
You can.
Oh, Igor, sorry.
Have my second.
Okay.
You know how I love a second. Thank you.
We're just fighting over it. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, we're just gonna second it. I mean, I still do obviously remain conflicted. But yeah. Thank you.
Yes, and then Debbie, and then Debbie also has her hand up.
Thank you. I appreciate the struggle. I understand the struggle, everybody. I'm with you too. But I just want to share maybe some other thoughts too. When there's this kind of struggle, or when I have some emotional, there's anecdotal information, of course, from myself and my own experiences there. I walk by there. I live 4 blocks away and my office is 2 blocks away. I walk by there every day. There's anecdotal information from the community as well. So I understand that. But in making a decision for me, I think, and maybe this is what could come out should this go to the council, is there hard data, or what sort of hard data do we have to stand on? One thing that at least I do believe in and do know, that there is a variety of peer-reviewed research that talks about the density and saturation of alcohol availability in certain neighborhoods actually does lead to detriment. That is published, that I do understand as data. Obviously, some other people understand that too. If they're going to volunteer, for example, if the applicant is going to volunteer some conditions that restrict the sale of certain types of alcohol at certain times and other sorts of things, then they also seem to understand that the saturation and sale of alcohol leads to some sort of detriment. Where there isn't peer-reviewed research, in my mind, is whether those conditions are actually the appropriate conditions to reduce detriment. Those are just volunteered conditions. But in my mind, at least, what I do stand on are the facts that I try to lean on in making decisions have to do with not just personal experience, anecdotes, or community comment, but it's actually also the peer-reviewed research. And for me, that's sort of where my my stance on opposing this would be, and to also to support any other research or any other understanding about how this might be detrimental or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Debbie, and then Debbie.
Well, I'll make one brief comment and then I will continue to struggle. I'm concerned that I started working in the planning department in 2003, and every project that came in with a requirement for a request for a liquor license had the same story. We're just barely making it, and we need the revenue from the sale of beer and wine to hold it together. So I mean, I think that's a constant for small stores. And I guess I thought your comments, Charles, were interesting about which side of the detriment do we want to be on. And given I have tremendous respect for the community and their concerns. And at this point, I'm sure it's going to go to council, so it may not matter what we do. But it's not clear to me that the source of the problem in that neighborhood is the sale of alcohol, which is primarily those two. There's 4 places, and I don't think the Spanish Table is attracting people who want to abuse alcohol. So there's 2 stores, one at the top and one at the bottom of that blue circle. And they've been there for eons. They don't have a very good Yelp rating. So it's just not clear to me that denying this is going to make any difference whatsoever. And I know that the neighbors believe it will. But I guess as a policy analyst, I can understand that that's what, that's the thing they can control. So that's the thing, we're all pushing on and concerned about. But, the longevity of the problems in that neighborhood strikes me that there's another source of the problem that is much more important than whether 7-Eleven sells beer and wine. So
Deborah, you can second my motion if you want.
I would want to go read 2 libraries on this and get more information on what's going on in this neighborhood. Like I said, in the past, when we closed down a liquor store, then problems were around the liquor store and the neighborhoods around the liquor store. And then we cleaned up the neighborhoods piece by piece by piece. This is entirely different. The problems are not centered around those liquor stores. It's all up and down San Pablo. So I'm still on the fence. Sorry, I'm still thinking.
Okay. We'll see how the vote turns out. Joey?
I'll try to make it quick as well. I just want to uplift Cecilia's words around some of how we can consciously or unconsciously characterize a neighborhood without being in direct juxtaposition to them or being direct neighbors to them. So I wanted to appreciate Cecilia's important framing around how language can be a powerful way of illustrating something that could be misunderstood. So thank you for highlighting that. And I also think, Chair, it would be appropriate time to call the question, seeing that no second has been made to the substitute motion.
Thank you. So, yes, Shoshana, sorry you didn't get your second, but I appreciate you making the motion. I'd like to call the question and see if we have a decision tonight. Thanks everybody for the comments on a tricky one. Samantha?
Okay, so this is to deny the use permit for 2000 San Pablo Avenue. Board Member Trigu?
On the motion to deny, yes.
On the motion to deny. Duffy?
Yes.
On the motion to deny, yes.
Daphne?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Lunaparo?
Yes.
Vice Chair O'Keefe?
No.
Chair Khan?
I'm going to say yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Sanderson?
That was a no.
You're muted. That's everyone.
Oh, that was everyone. Okay, well, the motion passes, as you point out. It will probably be appealed. But I really appreciate the very thoughtful and careful discussion of the group here. Hopefully those comments, they are part of the public record, will be reviewed by council, if it does in fact go to council. And this was not an easy one. I can tell you, I came in tonight personally intending to vote for the application, in that I didn't do as Yes had done and read every single line of testimony. I thank you for doing that. Yes, we all really should. But I did hear the neighbors speaking, and it wasn't just a bunch of people saying, "Oh, I don't like liquor." They really have some issues. So anyway, thanks to everybody for really thoughtful. What a meeting tonight. So you really picked it. You know, this was. We're so constrained on so many issues around housing, Cecilia, now, that on some of the larger housing projects, I think we sadly feel almost like a rubber stamp at times because of state restrictions. But we got into some substantive stuff tonight. So this was a good meeting for you to launch your career on. And you're very welcome, and thanks for your comments tonight.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of being welcome. Thank you.
We do actually have a couple more items before we close out. If I can find the agenda and all my paperwork here.
Is there a DRC report out?
No, we haven't had a meeting for, we didn't have a meeting in November. So
right, we'll be meeting next week.
Yep.
We do have some staff communications. I would like to speak to the first communication, which is the memorandum from City Council regarding the land acknowledgement. I've been advised by Samantha that we cannot discuss that item or entertain it as a action without noticing that we will be discussing it and entertaining it as an action. So in my capacity as chair, Samantha, I would like you to notice that we will be discussing that issue, so that the public who may be interested in participating is given an opportunity to attend and speak and advise on how this commission addresses the issue.
And will that be for January 12th for the next meeting?
You know, Samantha, I would like to do it. Do we have 2 meetings in January scheduled? You know, the schedule it's
1 meeting in January. We have 9 items on January 12th.
And how many items?
This should all be coming to you. And 9 items tentatively for February 9th. And 4 tentatively for whatever the second meeting in February is. I don't remember the date. I think it's the 20th.
Okay. Well, my personal request as chair then would be to make it the second meeting in February so that it gets the attention it deserves. Because with the crammed meetings in January and early February, I don't want to feel hurried about it.
Okay.
And then there's also another staff communication. If anyone has questions about either of these memorandums, this is your big chance to ask for clarification from Samantha. I don't see any hands raised. So if there are no further any other staff communications, Samantha?
Yes. I wanted to talk about the return to in-person meetings. So as many of you have probably heard, Governor Newsom has said that he plans on lifting the emergency order on February 28th of 2023. And if that is the case and the order is lifted, under the Brown Act, we'll be required to go back to in-person meetings starting March 1st. So I think there's a likelihood that we'll be going back for our March meetings to in person at we still have the boardroom, which is great because it's a really great space. And staff is currently looking into ways to allow remote participation from the public, since the boardroom does have ample AV technology that a lot of our meeting spaces don't have. So ZAB is really fortunate in that way. So we're exploring the possibility.
Thank you for doing that. I mean,
Yeah.
also that would be beneficial for a zoning board member if they were home watching a sick child but wanted to still participate, for example.
Well, but under the Brown Act, remote participation is, it's an ADA accommodation that requires publishing of your home address as a meeting location, and the public, I believe, is allowed to come to your home and participate in your meeting. So it is I can definitely send that information out to the board on how to request an ADA accommodation. I'll just send it in case anyone's interested. No need to.
I'm curious about it. I'm curious about the law, and of course want to know the Brown Act. Okay, well, thank you for that information, Samantha. Look forward to seeing all of you in person in March. I think, Michael, we met on Zoom. Yeah, so.
Me too. I haven't seen any of you guys in person before, except for like Dohi.
Yeah, it's going to be strange to the 3D effect.
Yeah. Who's done a meeting in the boardroom before? Yeah, not me either.
So I see Joey and Igor, your hands are still up. Do you want to be recognized?
Yes, sorry to interrupt the flow. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to interrupt the flow right now, but I was wondering if it's okay to make some quick remarks about ending my term tonight.
Oh my God, Joey, yes. No, this is absolutely the right time. We're about to adjourn, and definitely before we adjourn, I hope everything's okay with you. I'm terribly chagrined to hear that you're leaving us. Are you okay? Are things all right?
Thank you for your concern. No, I'm doing good. Thank you so much. That means a lot.
I was worried there was some terrible health problem. I'm going, oh my God.
No, feeling better, feeling good. I appreciate the space. I really hope to not prolong your night too much, but I just wanted to start off by sharing so much gratitude for every member on the board. And Samantha, you just mentioned that you haven't had a meeting in the boardroom before, and I haven't been able to meet you in person, and I apologize for that sincerely, but it was wonderful to share at least the virtual space during a very disruptive, historic time for us. And so, yeah, thank you so much for helping to lead a lot of the staff knowledge and support to the board. I started ZAB in August 2018, so I think it's been around 4 years already. And so it felt like a very short and long time, which feels like an oxymoron, but it feels very true. And I just want to thank former council members Worthington and Rigel Robinson and James Chang from D7 for kind of believing me and just putting me in this position of learning more about housing advocacy, about public forum, about civic engagement. And I just wanted to recognize, excuse me, also former Commissioner Carrie Olson and John Solowski and Patrick Sheehan, who was who were with us as commissioners at some point, and also Chair Khan and Igor and Shoshana. Thank you so much for your mentorship. Oh, and Teresa Clark. But thank you so much for your mentorship. I learned a lot during your time. And I promised to make this short, but I still have a card from someone from December 15, 2019, by Andrea Mode. I think she was from the Land Use Planning Division. And maybe other commissioners got this card too, but she mentioned that my name is Andrea Mode, and I attended and spoke at the last ZAB meeting on Thursday, December 12th, 2019. This is my first City of Berkeley related meeting, and I was impressed by the level of attention ZAB gave the agenda items. Additionally, I truly appreciated the thoughtful discussions and participation by the public. Thank you for your continued dedication and service to the City of Berkeley. I'm grateful to live in such a community-focused and civic-minded place. With gratitude, Andrea Mode. And I just wanted to echo her sentiments and just say thank you, Andrea, if you are ever hearing this in the public, because I never have met you in person. But thank you for this card, because it was really meaningful when I first started on ZAB, and I felt like I had to learn a lot, and there was a huge learning curve. But it was really worth it, and I think it was definitely through mentorship, but also I wanted to address to more newer members that I didn't get to meet in person. It has been wonderful to share space with you, and I hope you get to continue the amazing service you're deciding to do here collectively with people of many different backgrounds in this one space to solve out really real zoning issues. And so thank you so much. And I'm so sorry, this was kind of rambling, but I just wanted to recognize.
I think 4 years of service, Joey, justifies a little time. So
Thank you.
no problem here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and have a good night.
Well, we're not done with the meeting yet, so don't go away. Igor?
All right, now you all are gonna hate me because this is gonna sound like the most anticlimactic thing ever after those rousing comments. And Dohi, you are definitely going to be missed. I think I speak for all of us. I should have spoken up earlier on information item number 2, but this is on the revision and clarification of condition of approval number 56 for 2435 Hay Street. And to be honest with you, I've been sitting here rereading this like 5 times, and I don't think I understand what is being changed or clarified. And apologies, I should have asked this earlier, but staff, would you mind elucidating?
Yes, please do, Samantha.
Sure. So so there's a strikeout sentence from the conditions, which was the part that was that contradicts the land use code, as well as the condition of approval under 56A, and so it's unenforceable. And so the strikeout line this is Sharon's project, so I'm doing my best to sort of pitch hit here.
Doing great.
So the line that was contradicting the code and the previous condition, sitting tenants that do not qualify for a below market rate unit shall be provided first right of refusal to rent another unit in the building at the rent that would have applied if they remained in place for as long as their tenancy continues. And I think that goes against the regulatory agreement and that HHCS oversees. in terms of the income qualifications for returning tenants. And so the regulatory agreement includes the following provision for returning tenants: that tenants who do not income qualify for below market rate units in the new building shall occupy a unit per the terms and conditions of Approval 56. At the end of their tenancy, the unit shall assume the affordability levels specified in the regulatory agreement. And so, so sitting tenants still have the right of first refusal to move in. And then that is regulated under the regulatory agreement.
So functionally, are there any changes?
Can you say again? Sorry, you cut out a little bit.
Functionally, are there any changes? Because you said the element of first right of refusal that's retained, and the element of the same rent as well as they occupy the unit is
right. So 56A and 56B directly contradicted each other. Yes. Tenants of the units are demolished shall have the right of first refusal to rent new below market rate units designated to replace the units that were demolished at that rent would have applied if they had remained in place as long as their tenancy continues. Income restrictions do not apply to displaced tenants.
Okay.
Okay.
I can't speak to clarify
and then,
because
and then B said, but if a tenant doesn't income qualify, so they were contradicting.
Okay. I think while I'm still not super clear, it sounds like functionally the deletion doesn't change the circumstances of the tenant's ability to occupy a unit at previous rent, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so if that's all the official business, I would like to make a motion to adjourn in honor of our fellow Commissioner Doi Kim and her 4 years of service with us. I think you put it very well, Doi, when you said it's been 4 short and long years. It's been a very odd time. Thank you for hanging, working your way through it with us, from, being in person to being online. And you have grown so much in those 4 years that I had you slated in my mind for the chair seat, which is coming up shortly. So we're going to have to figure, maybe that goes back to Shoshana if she'll take it. I know she was campaigning for you on that. So sorry, Shoshana, you might have to do it. Anyway, you've done tremendous work. You've always been very thoughtful, but very heartful too. And I think the comments that you read to us tonight, that's certainly the commission I want to be part of. And we're going to lose a little bit of that when you go. And I just hope that whoever does occupy your seat carries the torch forward in the future. Thanks so much for your participation. Deeply appreciated.
Thank you so much. That really means a lot. That really means a lot. Thank you.
And I'm glad you're okay. All right. Well, I guess so. That's a motion. I have a motion to adjourn. Doi, would you like to second the motion?
Yes, please.
Great. That's your last second, and on this commission. And let's take a vote.
Okay, on the motion to adjourn, Board Member Trigu.
Yes, with appreciation to Doi.
Here, here.
Duffy?
Yes, thank you, Doi.
Gaffney?
Yes, and yeah, thank you, Dohi. It was so great actually meeting you in person, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for your service.
Thompson?
Yes, thank you, Joey. You've been such an inspiration. I will definitely miss your energy here. I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn too. Sorry.
Little energy there.
Luna Para?
Yes, I only talked to you today, but I really appreciated your comments. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Vice Chair O'Keefe?
Yes to adjourn, and thanks so much, Dohi. See you around.
Thank you.
Chair Khan?
Yes, and I said thank you before, but I do hope we do get to see each other in person again, hopefully sometime soon.
Kim?
Thank you so much for all the comments. And thank you, Deborah, as well. I know I haven't met you in person, but I just wanted to thank you in advance for some reason.
And Sanderson?
Yes to adjourn. And it's really been wonderful with you on the ZAB, and the whole group has become such a collaborative group that I thought about getting off due to some family health problems, but I said, no, this is too much fun. I'm going to stay on. And I appreciate your input throughout the time. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's it for tonight. And hope to see you around, Doey. And I'll see the rest of you in January. Have a great
See you
holiday
next
season.
year. You get to see you next year.
See you next year.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good holiday, everybody.